These guys from a podcast called "This Podcast Is Making Me Thirsty" want to talk to you, and I think and I said, you don't have to tell me what it's about. I said, if it's called "This Podcast Is Making Me Thirsty," you definitely don't need to tell me what it's about, and I'm going on. This is what I want to do.
It's a Seinfeld podcast. It's called "This Podcast Is Making Me Thirsty." But I thought, this is what a podcast should be.
I just did the Seinfeld guys pod the other day. It came up.
These pretzels are making me thirsty.
Oh,
that one. Shout out. We've done it. I've done it. Have you did it?
I've not gotten a chance to do it yet. I'm looking forward to it.
It's so fun. They're so fun.
When I don't know, it must have shown up in my feed, but I see these guys tweeting about Seinfeld. I'm like, oh, what's this? And I find it's a podcast called "This Podcast Is Making Me Thirsty."
One of the most popular Seinfeld podcasts is "This Podcast Is Making Me Thirsty," co-hosted by Chris O'Hara and Tony Chulo.
Welcome to "This Podcast Is Making Me Thirsty," the number one destination for Seinfeld fans. This is 2 Up and 2 Down. Here's our producer, Chris, to start us off.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we got The Suicide, a season 3 episode. And Chris, start us off. What's your first up?
The Suicide. Friend of the show, Tom Leopold, wrote this. Love Tom Leopold. This is back January 29th of 92, folks. Went up against Jake and the Fat Man on CBS and a Barbara Walters special on ABC. 16.9 million people watched it on NBC that night. So here we go. 2 positives, 2 negatives. You know the deal. We don't share notes. We gotta respond on the fly here. If we share a lot of those. So here we go. I'm gonna go. I love the scene in the hallway when Jerry takes his garbage out, and George comes along, and the whole come on, throw this out. I'll give you $2. Yeah, I'll take that garbage out for $2. And then Jerry's negotiated 50 cents. I'm not taking anything less than $2 for that. And then they're talking about, I think in the same scene here, when George finally pops up to that hallway, talks about the vacation, the free vacation he's getting. Who goes on vacation without a job? Need a break from getting up at 11? Love that line. I thought Jerry weaved a lot of smart writing, even stand-up-y kind of wit into a lot of this dialogue. So really enjoyed that first connection with Jerry and George in the hallway of all places, which was interesting. We rarely got that. A lot of these early seasons, they may be coming up from the elevator, but Jerry taking the garbage out, I think this was the first and last time he took the garbage out on Seinfeld, but I will give that the first up.
Yeah, what I like about that scene too is he leaves it on Kramer's doorstep there, and Kramer picks it up. All right. Yeah, good up. So over to you, Tony. What do you got for your first up?
I do like that up as well. The break from still waking up at 11. That's great, Jerry line. Listen, my first up is easily going to be Newman. I mean, this is Newman's first on-screen episode. This is the first time we actually see him. Larry David does his voice, earlier on, but this is the first time we actually see Newman and get Newman. And I think if you're watching this out of order and you see this episode, you don't know this is Newman's first episode. That's Newman. That's who Newman is. He delivers who Newman is right then and there, gives us who he is, doesn't really like Jerry that much. Friends with Kramer. He's there needling. Can always get him with a coffee cake or whatever you need to get him with, a chunk. There's always something to entice him with. But he's being Newman. And I think it's a great introduction to the character. I think Wayne Knight hits it out of the park. We all come to love him later on. But I think to a testament, most of the other characters, if you watch the show out of order, you can see differences in these characters. Whereas Newman, pretty much, you got him right then and there in this episode, who he is. And Jerry does do it Hello Newman, not the Hello Newman. I like his Hello Newman here better than what it becomes, obviously, the played out BS. But Jerry calls him Big Mouth Newman, huh? Big Mouth Newman, he calls. I don't know who Newman is. This little guy, he's always milking around. Go back to the reverse peephole episode. An agitator, right? That's what Newman is. And we get it. We get it right here in this first episode. So that's my up is Newman.
Oh yeah, you got to go there with Newman. So yeah, good up. Chris, over to you. What's your second up here?
Really solid and hard to ignore. Agree there. Second up, I'm going to go another guest star, Gina. Love Gina. You know, I mean, sexy, Jesus, right? Um, from Jumpstart in the hallway, like you're like, whoa, like, and then I love the hospital combo with her and Jerry. Kiss me, I'm a man who respects a good coma. That whole thing, and her needling Jerry. Will you run away like a little mouse? I love that line. Um, and then obviously kind of phasing into the Stooges talk. Who are these Stooges? Love her accent. Love the whole thing. Gina Gallego would love to have her on the show, of course. But she was something, man. She got Jerry nervous, and the whole building took notice of Gina. Great job, Martin, for snagging her. But I thought she was great. The whole kiss me, Jerry. Loved it. Loved Gina early on. Made Jerry so nervous. So she's my second up. Like I said, this show's an ode to guest stars, and I think they definitely elevated her in this one, because when you think of the Suicide, you do think of Gina.
Absolutely. So yeah, great up there with Gina. Tony, over to you. What's your second up?
Yeah, love Gina. I will show you the Stooges, one of the all-time greatest lines in the history of the show. I'll go. That's one I'll always say. My second up, and I got a couple here I'd love to do. I'll get one maybe when we do the grades, because there's a few here I want to say. But to O'Hara's point with so you gave the whole Gina stuff, so I'll lay off that. I'm gonna go with the Jerry. It's kind of a Jerry. It's more of a Jerry, George, and Kramer. The scene where Kramer comes back from the trip and explaining the trip. Now I did, I don't know when these aired, but the two up we did on the masseuse. Kramer gives the whole thing about getting the football and jumping into the stands. I didn't really love that story. I like this story. I thought this was a great Kramer delivery, and just Jerry hitting George every time he said something good. Amazing. Just so good. The chemistry between these three. This is season 3, still kind of early, but they're there. Kramer's going on, Al McPherson, the swimsuit models, the whole thing. And Jerry's like, Al, slapping George. Can you believe it? Absolutely love it. Just a great little scene there, because you know what? It was a little bit unexpected too when you watched it live. Like maybe you thought Kramer would have a good time, but I love how they just pulled this whole story about the swimsuit. Everyone knows swimsuit issue back then was it, and so and then Kramer's like, I got to go call McPherson now, whatever he says, and just I'm really giving it to Jerry's reaction with George. I love the slapping George. It punctuate everything that was great about the trip. Then I stepped on a jellyfish or whatever. That's probably what she was talking about. Great little scene there. Shows all three of them doing their thing perfectly. So that's my second up.
Yeah, great stuff there with the K-Man. So another good up. So those are the ups. Let's do the downs. Chris, what's your first one?
Always love that Sports Illustrated Al McPherson mention. Great stuff. All right, downs. Here we go. You know what? I'm gonna go Elaine's storyline. The whole fasting bit. I don't know. It just didn't really fit, and I almost forgot about it, because she went to George, to the psychic, and all of a sudden they're at the hospital, and she's going crazy, and I was like, wait a minute, why is she acting that way? And I actually forgot that they talked about the fasting in the beginning of the episode. It was just disconnected. It wasn't threaded throughout that she was not eating here, not eating there. It just all of a sudden happened, and she's like, it turned into Godzilla or whatever. So, and it just wasn't funny. So I don't know how to put it any other way. If it made me laugh, then I would have maybe given it a break. But Elaine kind of had a weird, she had her moments, but the fasting stuff just didn't make any sense. And then I guess at the end with the coffee cake and everything, and maybe, but it didn't fit. in a pretty tight well written episode by Leopold. So Elaine's fasting stuff first down.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. That storyline didn't really hit. So, yeah, good down. Tony, what do you got for your first down?
Totally agree. That was going to be my first down. That was my big down, actually. The Lane storyline. The down I'll use though is the ending. The ending is very very sitcom-y ending. Martine and Gina move in together. That whole thing. I didn't love the ending at all. I thought it was very sitcom-y. How Jerry just kind of ties a bow on the whole thing. This this isn't what Seinfeld should be doing, tying bows like that and bringing it all together with kind of a quick little we're going Lane can go out to dinner. We're taking Elaine to dinner because she got to start fasting again, and then the whole invitation to the housewarming thing for Martin and Gina moving in together. What I don't know. They had 30, they had 2 minutes to kill at the end there. They wanted to tie the whole thing together. I get it. Not really, up to the standards of what we see in later episodes and even season 3 episodes that we love. So that's my second down. The sitcom ending of kind of bringing everything together by talking it out and Jerry just kind of saying it. When we don't usually, we're used to seeing it all come together at the end. This was just Jerry like, oh yeah, da, da, da. They all said that there are 3 things and it all kind of ends. So that's my second down, my first down.
First down. Yeah. So, all right. Yeah. I'll definitely, mark that down as a down. Over to you, Chris. What do you got for your second down?
Yeah, it's a fair point there, Mikey. Here we go. I mean, second down, I'm going to, common theme of mine, beating a dead horse here. The Drake's coffee cake. Enough already. All right. There was about 9 to 10 mentions of the Drake coffee cake. 50 cents, $2, just. And maybe this is just the Seinfeld thing. I know they didn't get paid on product placement and they were looking for that like big hit. I'm not calling this, a yada yada or anything like that. I don't think that's in Leopold's fabric, if you will, but someone got involved here. We're like, oh, let's just keep talking about the Drake coffee cake and just ba-bum, ba-bum. I think a couple times here and there would have been funny, but it went on and on a little too much for my liking. And you rarely see this in season 3 there, but 9, 10 times talking about Drake coffee cake. Let's move on, okay? So that's my second down.
Yeah, too repetitive with that stuff with the cake. All right. Over to you, Tony. What's your second down?
Yeah, I could be way off on this. I probably am, but I always thought the Drakes was like a New York nod, sort of very New York. I don't know if Drakes are everywhere. Maybe they are. I just feel like they're. My whole childhood was Drake's, Devil Dogs and everything else. The Drake baseball cards and just Drake's coffee cakes made sense in the early '90s, New York. I didn't mind it, but I get the overkill. I think I wrote it down as well. I can see that down for sure. Listen, my second down. I know Howard gave this an up, and I agree with him on that part of that scene. But the opening actual first scene is like over 5 minutes long, and it's all dialogue. George is talking about a dream he had. Elaine's going out with the fasting, like O'Hara mentioned. This is what Pink Hat fans don't like about the early seasons. We talk about this a lot, these early seasons, a little bit slower pace, longer scenes, a lot of dialogue. And usually I'm a fan of it and I do like it. I just think if I'm finding downs in this episode, even on the rewatch, I'm like, this first scene is like, it's kind of one big long scene and it's a lot of talking and it drags in the Elaine stuff that we don't like. And George talking about this whole dream he had that made no sense about being a stand-up comedian. Like, let's face it, George is not a stand-up comedian. Jerry's like, oh, I played that place. Okay, fine, I get it. That's how they get Jerry involved. But I don't know. I just thought there was a little too much talking and not a lot of not a lot of talking that hit, if you will. So if I'm gonna find another down, this is why I see, this is what Pink Hats would say is bad about these episodes. I don't particularly agree most of the time, but there's a little bit of that in this one where it drags on a little bit too much. They don't really get to the point a lot. I thought the hallway conversation, introducing Gina was great. And and the garbage stuff. But that was really like half the scene. The rest of the scene, I mean, it's a long first scene that just kind of dragged on. So that's my second.
All right, yeah, Tony, I see your points there. So those are the ups and the downs. Chris, we'll switch it back to you for your wrap up and grade.
Yeah, and I feel I'm a little bit on that, but I think they pivoted and bounced back. Obviously, the whole psychic stuff, psychics, vacations. How about getting a job? I think they almost like took that length and just squeezed it out and boom, and then they took off. But I hear you. I hear you. I mean, yeah, some downs. I said the Drakes, George going to the psychic with. Well, first off, why was Elaine at the psychic with him? Isn't that like a? It's not like seeing a shrink, but I don't know. It's kind of
Right,
personal.
but I thought she said it was her friend, wasn't it? That's how she set him
She
up.
knew
with it?
someone who
She
knew
knew.
someone.
Yeah, fair point.
So yeah, so listen, early on, some editing, some little things here, George discrepancies, father's bald, mother's bald, mentions his brother, brings up Audrey again. Isn't she with the K-Man? I mean, so, but that's just fickle stuff. So, but at the end of the day, it's a very solid episode. And you know how I feel about season 3. It's right up there. You mentioned Newman. Oh, God, I might be talking myself into a higher. I mean, you mentioned Newman. You mentioned Kramer. I loved Kramer when Jerry came back from the hospital and Kramer saying, "There's no coma etiquette." He's got my vacuum cleaner. I mean that is just like a New York City neighbor. Like, I don't know. Was it the other vacuum they're talking about? I love the vacuum talk. Like, go get it. Like, Martine, the whole thing. Loved it. I thought George was solid. Elaine was down. Early seasons you mentioned it's anchored around Jerry. Even though it's season 3, I thought Jerry brought it. What kind of man are you? He's such a little, he's not a man, Jerry, quite frankly, and he admits it. He's scared. He won't even leave the building. And Newman catches them. The whole thing. Listen, the suicides. It's one of those episodes you'll never turn off, right? The pace, and I thought the pace outside of what Tony mentioned picked up. So, like I said, you kind of forgot about that 5 minutes, and it just became. And I thought it sped up, but I thought it was really solid. So, what do I give a solid episode in season 3? I give it a solid B. Couldn't go lower. There's days you can go higher because you got to think about season 3 now, and that's what I think about. But I think it's fair based on the landscape we know. And again, I think Leopold did a pretty nice job here. So B for the suicide.
All right, good. I'm not going to comment any further because I want to get right over to Tony with his thoughts and grade, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, great points, spot on points in my opinion. Listen, this is one of those episodes where like I kind of almost don't forget about it, but I'm like the suicide, and then I watch it again and I'm like, holy shit, man. Like you said, Newman, show me the Stooges. We didn't really get into Kramer. You got into Kramer a little bit, but on our ups, we didn't really talk Kramer. The carpet sweeper is the biggest scam perpetrated by your public is the 1 hour Martinizing. Like, that's a Kramer line if I ever heard one. There is no coma etiquette, as I mentioned. Everything's got 24 hours. I give him 24 hours, he says. Unbelievable. Great thing of a Mediterranean woman. He slips in there because K-Man knows it all, To Harris' point, it's a great Jerry episode. We didn't get here. This was going to be one of my ups. When she's knocking on the door, Martine. He's like, what? Oh, Martin. And then he's like, should I put pajamas on? Should I get a robe? That whole conversation there about running to the hospital. In the hospital, as O'Hara mentioned, sentimentality up the yin yang with Newman. This is unemployed George, seeing a psychic, trying to figure things out, doesn't know what's going on. Love that stuff. As O'Hara mentioned, front of the show, Leopold, I'm a man who respects a good coma. Great line. there's just so much here, man. There's just so much here that just keeps coming back. And how I mentioned season 3, it's sentimental, I think, with me, maybe more than anything else. But I really like this episode too, and might not seem that way. Same grade. I think it's a clean B. I think there's no way around it. Season 3, it's got everything you're gonna want. The downs don't bring it down to like anything that's you're gonna be like turning it off, obviously. And the ups aren't outrageous. We're not going to A territory here, but I mean, if someone says, put on the suicide, I'm in. Like it's good as it's gonna be. As I mentioned, the Jerry slap and it sets up. It's early enough that we're still setting up characters. And I thought they all did great. Was it Elaine's best episode? Probably not, but she holds true to herself with the smoking stuff, similar to the statue stuff. How to put the cigarette in your face, she says in the elevator. Elena doesn't like smoking. There you go. Listen, we fell in the same grade. I think the suicide, I wrote a few down, but I'm going back to it. B for the suicide.
Well, there you have it. Tony said it all that needed to be said. A B for the suicide. So season 3, always worth a check-in of any episode there. So thank you guys. That does it for the suicide with 2 ups and 2 downs. And we'll see everybody on our next one.